My name is Alvin Wynn. What's in your kitchen?
Like we always do with this.
My love for cooking started watching my mother make meals from scratch. She would prepare meals or items like cakes, pies, cookies, and full dinners. And that's because we had a large family. There were 5 children, my mother and my father, and 3 boys and 2 girls, and we were healthy eaters. But growing up early on in elementary school, food was scarce. So my mother would have to make do preparing different meals. Sometimes she would surprise us making a pot roast. And growing up, I thought a pot roast was considered ends meet, because my father came home one day and had the money for his bills out on the table and shook his head and said, I wish we had some more ends meet. And I said, well, there's some ends meet in the refrigerator. So I looked in the refrigerator and it was all gone because he ate the last of the pot roast. So I said, I knew I saw some ends meat in the refrigerator. And he shook his head and laughed and said, man, I wish it was just that easy to open the refrigerator and get some ends meat. But it took time for me to grow up and realize that food was scarce. And we had a really hard time feeding the large family off the income that my father had as a cab driver. But I really didn't start cooking until a late teenager, after I was in high school. And my mother used to suffer from migraines. So when I got home from school, my older sister Lori, and myself would help my mother prepare the meals. And that's when I learned how to cook. And we didn't have recipes, and we didn't have a cookbook that we went through to determine what was the proper amount of ingredients. Everything was a pinch, a taste, and never too much, because once you put too much in it, you can't take it out. Soul food means to me family. Family, because we would all come together in the kitchen and help prepare meals. So that taught me discipline and to properly season my food and use the right amount of ingredients. And to sit down during dinner time after preparing a beautiful meal with your macaroni and cheese, your collard greens, fried chicken, your pot roast, and also sometimes a little either fried or baked fish. And we have to have yeast rolls for dinner. So sitting down and eating a nice hearty meal together, laughing and joking every other Sunday was a beautiful thing, and that's what hits home for me. I make the best mac and cheese because I don't use eggs. I have simple ingredients that I use for my mac and cheese: sharp and mild sharp cheese, salt, pepper, butter, and just a little bit of heavy cream. That's all I use. My mother grew up in Fayetteville, North Carolina, on a farm with 16 brothers and sisters. And she brought with her the tradition of preparing everything that you need and raised us with the skills that she learned as a child growing up. So she was one of the leaders of the family. Mother brought with her a tradition that was handed down over generations through the Great Migration to seasoning and preparing your own foods. For an example, in late October, early November, my uncles would get together on the instruction of my grandfather to slaughter 3 hogs for the winter season. And each year they would slaughter the hogs to make their own sausages, their ham, ribs, and these items they would take and store for the winter time. So that was a tradition that was brought to us that we still carry till this day. The staple food for me would be collard greens. And collard greens are not just a side dish or a vegetable, but it's a very important part of the meal that my mother taught us, that you have to have a vegetable. And I think that collard greens are the best flavored vegetable that I had ever tried. So growing up, my responsibility was to pull the vein out of the middle of the leaf, layer the leaves on top of each other, roll them, and then cut them in half, or cut them in slices. And then take them and put them in a large pan with some cold water and a little bit of salt and wash them. Because collard greens has fine sand on them, and you would not want that sand in your broth during serving. So I would wash the greens and take the greens and wash them twice, and then have my mother to prepare them. She would already have a pot of boiling water with a smoked turkey neck bone in the pot, waiting for the greens to be washed and ready. And after she would prepare the greens, and she would always have a side of vinegar and hot sauce on the side to add a little bit of flavor to it. The traditions in cooking and the different meals that my mother brought from the South is a staple and a tradition about family and togetherness. And each one of my siblings has taken a favorite dish that they grew up with, and that's one of their signature dishes. We would sit down with my mother and we would talk and have beautiful times laughing and joking together. So sitting down during the winter months, especially when the snow falls, brings back the real close memories that I had with my siblings.